Hello, dear listener. Take a deep breath with me for a moment. Have you ever noticed how sometimes it's precisely life's challenges that have shaped us into the stronger, more resilient people we are today? There's profound wisdom in this observation, one that modern science is beginning to understand more clearly. Today, we'll explore a fascinating concept called psychological hormesis, the idea that just as muscles grow stronger when exposed to appropriate resistance, our minds can develop greater resilience and capacity through intentional exposure to small doses of stress. This isn't an invitation to unnecessary suffering, but rather an understanding of how we can work with, instead of against, the natural growth mechanisms of our brain and mind. Understanding hormesis, the wisdom of the right dose. The word hormesis comes from the Greek hormene, meaning to stimulate. In biology, it refers to the phenomenon where a substance or factor that would be toxic in large amounts produces beneficial effects in smaller doses. Think of physical exercise. During a workout, you create tiny tears in muscle fibers, a stress on the body. In response, your system not only repairs the damage but strengthens the muscles beyond their previous state, preparing for future challenges. Psychological hormesis follows a similar principle. When we voluntarily expose ourselves to controlled discomfort, moderate difficulties, or manageable uncertainties, our psychological system responds by developing greater tolerance for future stress, new cognitive and emotional resources, more flexible perspectives, increased confidence in our ability to face challenges. In nature, we see this principle everywhere. A tree exposed to moderate winds develops a stronger root system than one completely sheltered. Bamboo that bends with the wind, rather than resisting rigidly, becomes more resilient. The neuroscience of resilience, how your brain strengthens. What happens in the brain during psychological hormesis is fascinating. When we face moderate stressors in contexts where we have the resources to process them effectively, neurogenesis and plasticity, the brain ramps up production of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF, often called fertilizer for the brain. This protein stimulates the growth of new neurons and strengthens existing connections, especially in areas tied to memory, learning, and emotional regulation. Recalibration of the stress response system. Gradual exposure to manageable stressors trains the nervous system to respond more precisely. Over time, your alert system becomes more refined, activating when truly needed, without constantly sounding false alarms. Development of coping skills. Each time you face a moderate challenge and find ways to navigate it, you're building a richer repertoire of adaptive responses. This not only prepares you for similar challenges in the future, but also transfers to other areas of life. Stress inoculation, much like how vaccines work, exposing the body to weakened pathogens. Controlled exposure to stress can vaccinate your mind against more intense future stressors, preparing your response systems. The critical balance, when stress builds versus when it breaks. It's essential to distinguish between stress that strengthens and stress that harms. The difference lies not only in intensity, but in several interconnected factors. Dosage. Small to moderate stressors that challenge without overwhelming are generally beneficial. Intense, crushing, or chronic stress typically causes harm. Control and choice. Stress we choose voluntarily and over which we have some control tends to be constructive. Imposed stress, with no escape or influence, tends to be destructive. Interpretation. How we perceive a stressor makes a huge difference. Seeing it as a challenge or opportunity for growth, rather than a threat, fundamentally changes its impact on body and mind. Recovery. Adequate periods of rest and recovery between stress exposures are absolutely critical. Without them, the benefits of hormesis turn into cumulative damage. Supportive context. Adequate resources, both internal, emotional regulation skills, and external social support, determine whether a stressor becomes an opportunity for growth or a harmful experience. Researcher Scott Sonnenschein uses the metaphor of an elastic band. Stretched to a certain point, it becomes stronger and more flexible. Stretched beyond its limit, it snaps. The key is finding your optimal stretch zone. Practices to cultivate psychological hormesis, strengthening deliberately. Let's explore practical ways to incorporate psychological hormesis into your life. Smart strategies to build resilience through controlled and calculated discomfort. 1. Gradual exposure practice. The principle is simple. Deliberately expose yourself to slightly challenging situations, gradually increasing intensity as your tolerance develops. Practical example: if public speaking causes anxiety, start by sharing thoughts in small, supportive groups. Gradually increase the group size and formality of the context. With each step, your nervous system learns, I can do this and survive. Implementation: identify something that triggers moderate anxiety, 4 to 5 on a scale of 10. Expose yourself to it for manageable periods, allowing recovery time. Observe how your response changes with repeated exposure. 2. Voluntary discomfort practice. Incorporating small, voluntary discomforts builds psychological muscle for tolerating unpleasant sensations without reacting automatically. Practical example: take short cold showers, practice intermittent fasting, or go for a walk in less than ideal weather. The Stoic philosopher Seneca regularly practiced voluntary deprivation, even while wealthy, to strengthen his ability to face unexpected adversity. Implementation: choose a small but meaningful discomfort to incorporate weekly. Observe your thoughts, emotions, and bodily sensations during the experience. Notice how tolerance increases with repeated practice. 3. Embracing controlled uncertainty. Uncertainty is a common anxiety trigger. Gradual exposure to small uncertainties can build greater tolerance for it. Practical example: go to a restaurant without checking the menu beforehand. Travel to a new place without planning every detail. Start a project without complete certainty of the outcome. Implementation: identify areas where you typically seek excessive control or certainty. Experiment with relaxing that control in a minor aspect, noting your ability to adapt even without full information. 4. Cognitive diversity practice. Exposing yourself to ideas and perspectives that challenge your beliefs builds mental flexibility and intellectual resilience. Practical example: read articles from sources with political views different from yours. Engage in conversations with people who have radically different life experiences. Study a discipline entirely outside your intellectual comfort zone. Implementation: weekly, engage with content representing a perspective different from your own. Not to agree necessarily, but to exercise your ability to understand diverse lines of reasoning. 5. Intentional growth challenges. Seek activities that push you to the edge of your current abilities, challenging enough to require effort, but not so difficult as to lead to giving up. Practical example: learn a new skill like a musical instrument, language, or sport. Take on a project slightly beyond your current capabilities. Volunteer to present at a conference that makes you nervous but excited. Implementation: identify something you want to achieve, but have delayed due to fear or insecurity. Break it into small steps and commit to the first step this week. Integrating psychological hormesis into daily life. For lasting benefits, psychological hormesis must become an integral part of your approach to life, not just a series of isolated exercises. Developing a growth mindset. View challenges and discomfort not as signs something is wrong, but as opportunities for strengthening. As educator John Dewey noted, we are not disturbed by things themselves, but by our interpretations of them. Practice: when facing a tough situation, ask, how can this challenge strengthen me? What can I learn here that will serve me in the future? Calibrating the right dose. Hormesis works at the right dose, neither too high nor too low. Learn to recognize your current limits and work slightly beyond them without crossing into harmful territory. Practice: use a discomfort scale of 1 to 10 to evaluate challenges. Aim for activities rated 4 to 6, challenging but manageable. As your resilience grows, you'll notice what was once a 7 may now be a 5. Incorporating recovery rhythms. Psychological hormesis requires adequate recovery and integration periods. Without them, stress accumulates instead of building resilience. Practice. After challenging experiences, set aside deliberate time for rest, reflection, and processing. This might include meditation, journaling, talking with a trusted friend, or simply quiet time in nature. Celebrating progress, not perfection. The goal of psychological hormesis isn't to eliminate all stress responses, but to develop faster recovery and greater flexibility. Practice. Keep a resilience journal to document not only challenges faced, but your growing ability to navigate tough situations. Note areas where you now respond with more balance to situations that once destabilized you. Important considerations when hormesis isn't appropriate. While psychological hormesis offers powerful benefits, it's not universally applicable in all situations. During acute trauma or crisis, when someone is experiencing trauma or crisis, the priority is safety and stabilization, not hormesis. Only after establishing safety and basic nervous system regulation is gradual exposure appropriate. For severe mental health conditions, individuals with certain mental health conditions may need more tailored approaches, ideally under professional guidance. When recovery resources are compromised, if you're experiencing burnout, chronic sleep deprivation, or significant life instability, focus first on restoring basic resources before seeking additional stressors. Remember, psychological hormesis is about strengthening healthy systems, not overloading already compromised ones. Like any powerful tool, it must be applied with discernment. The paradox of strength, vulnerability as a path to resilience. As we explore psychological hormesis, we encounter a fascinating paradox. The path to true mental strength lies in the willingness to feel temporarily vulnerable. Many people, fearing emotional discomfort, build lives designed to minimize exposure to stressors. Ironically, this protective avoidance often leads to greater fragility over time, like muscles that atrophy without use. The willingness to face small challenges deliberately, to feel uncomfortable emotions, to stretch beyond comfort zones. These are the very practices that build lasting psychological robustness. As researcher Nassim Taleb notes in his work on anti-fragility, the goal isn't just to withstand stress, be resilient, but to grow stronger through it, be anti-fragile. An invitation to conscious experimentation. As we conclude our time together, I'd like to leave you with an invitation. Approach psychological hormesis as a curious experiment, not as another pressure or expectation. Start small. Observe carefully. Respect your current limits while gently expanding them. Remember, the goal isn't to seek suffering, but to strengthen your ability to navigate life's inevitable ups and downs with greater grace and resilience. Perhaps begin by noticing one area where you typically avoid discomfort. It could be a difficult conversation you've been postponing, a skill you'd like to develop but fear you're not good enough for, or a social situation you'd normally avoid. Choose one small step toward that discomfort. Approach it with curiosity and mindfulness. Observe your experience without judgment. And then, most importantly, notice the sense of strength that comes, not from the absence of discomfort, but from your ability to stay present through it. Take another deep breath. Feel the innate wisdom of your body and mind, already perfectly designed to grow through challenges, to learn through experience, to continually transform into more resilient and balanced versions of yourself. You're not just enduring life stresses. Through the conscious practice of psychological hormesis, you're alchemically transforming them into greater strength, flexibility, and wisdom. I'm here, walking alongside you on this ongoing journey of growth and discovery, one productive discomfort at a time.